have probably solidified their position in the room. But again, if you're going to be elite, that doesn't mean you're not ever not working to be your very best. But yes, I think we have a lot more fluidity in the depth chart this year than we did last year. And that's a challenge. That's what makes it exciting. I mean, that's kind of what I'm excited about in fall camp. It's really, it's really that thing that's like, hey, we have potential. I know that we can be pretty good, but we got a lot of work to do to get there at this point compared to where we were at this past season.
You guys have emphasized culture from the moment that you kind of got here, and we were just talking to Jonah, who I think we talked last year about how his future might be on the inside, but he's made it clear he's pretty willing to play wherever you want. Can you just talk about maybe his selflessness individually and kind of how that's kind of been the attitude of your group as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, to me, when I know I have a selfless group is when I see the older guys training younger guys at their position. And to me, I'm like, okay, we've got a selfless group. We've got a group that, they understand the brotherhood. They understand bringing the young guys along. They understand, developing relationships off the field. These guys spend a lot of time together, at the direction of Dietich and Monheim. I know they were at batting cages at times. They were out to eat at times. They were doing paintball together at times. They did all these things off the field. And I thought that was really important because we do have a lot of new faces coming into the room for those guys to get to know each other and develop a level of trust. And so, that's a huge part of the offensive line and the brotherhood and the culture. And those things bleed over into the culture of your team, and we talk a lot about that in our room. Like, if we want something said about our room as a group, is that we upheld the standard of the culture of the team, of how we expect to work as a team, how we expect to play with the type of effort, enthusiasm, and attitude, and great attitudes that we bring to practice every day. We want, Coach Riley to look at our room as a unit and be like, hey, that room's got it together. So that's something we take pride in and strive for.
You got to replace 3 starters from last year's group. A year ago at this time, it was only 1. What's that challenge like, replacing multiple guys in the line? Jonah talked about there's a real sense of urgency. Can you just describe that a little bit?
Yeah, it probably creates some more coaching. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, there's more attention to detail at multiple spots that you're trying to juggle. Versus last year, we were really just trying to figure out one spot. We kind of knew what the other 4 spots were going to be. So yeah, it probably leads to, I'll grade more live periods as we move on, so that those guys understand where they're performing at, where they're not, and giving those guys immediate feedback. But it just creates a little more work. But with that work comes more excitement. For me, I know I'm kind of looking forward to this fall camp because I don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know really who's going to win that job. I really do think we have a lot. I do think we have more guys below the obvious 4 or 5 that can get themselves in position to play for us this year than we did last year from a talent standpoint. And that to me is an exciting thing.
The 3 transfers you brought in, what do they have in common, and what made them attractive to coming to USC?
Well, obviously, the transfer portal has created, free agency. I mean, you can turn on a film and watch a guy playing at this level versus a high school player that you're projecting you think can do it, but you don't know that for sure. And so those guys bring in a certain level of experience. They've all played. They've all been starters. They've all played pretty dang well. So I think those guys just obviously they bring a certain level of just experience to the room and how to do things and just getting their job done, being a solid, consistent guy every day. Sometimes young players are really talented, but they just can't quite make it to the field because it's just the being able to do it consistently every day. The new academic rigors that go along with college, obviously the schedule. I'm getting tired. I'm having to play against big people every snap. But that's part of the process of growing up when you're young. And those guys are obviously past all that, so they can come in and give us what we hope is immediate production.
last thing for me, are you still expecting? We saw Mike take a lot of reps at left tackle in the spring. Is that still your expectation for him to be at left tackle?
Well, right now we've kind of switched Jonah and Mike.
What was it about Emmanuel that you saw on the tape that really stood out?
Well, just his top end potential as a guy that can really move you off the ball. We always say our job's not to block people, our job's to move people. If we're really doing this at elite level. And Emmanuel, it doesn't take much to look at him and figure out that maybe he can be a guy that can move people off the ball. But he demonstrated that on film a lot. Got to get more consistent at it. Certainly has a lot of room to grow as a player, but you saw some glimpses of some top end potential that maybe could be really elite someday.
When it comes to Jonah, especially if he is playing some at left tackle, I know it was always kind of the thing. Even the past coaching staff had said that his future is at guard. Has he changed at all, and is that still kind of how you see it, or do you feel like he could be a left tackle next level?
Jonah reminds me so much of a guy that I coached at Missouri named Mitch Morse, and Mitch played tackle for me his entire career at Mizzou. Got drafted by the Chiefs to become a center. I think he's now in his 9th season. So do I think that's probably Jonah's future? Yes. Do I think he can be a great player as a tackle in college? I do.
When you look at the running game from last year, what are the steps forward you think you guys can make from what you put on film last year?
Well, I think we can be. There's several things. One, we can be so much better using our hands. Our hands are still outside way too much. So just as far as hand placement on the defender and getting hands inside, that's going to help us improve tremendously. Pad level is one, and then I think we've got to get better at moving double teams. Just probably over the season, too many opportunities, or we had to double someone and get movement off the ball, but we didn't get the kind of movement that we would like, and that goes back down to those first two things I talked about. Really, pad level. It's technique things. It's pad level and hands inside and leg drive. I mean, those things don't change, but they sound cliche, but it is what it is. So that to me is where we need to get better at running the football.
Elijah Page was the one freshman, I think, that arrived early.
Yes.
Where does he stand currently heading into fall camp?
Well, there's always a depth chart of a 2 deep. We'll work him with the second group at left tackle. So there's always a depth chart of a 2 deep, and then there's that depth chart that's number 1 through 10. And if someone gets injured, we're trying to find a way to get 6, 5, 4, 2, and 1 on the field. And however that combination looks like and where those pieces best fit. So obviously, he's a true freshman. I think he's got a chance to be a really good player. But when you go to that 1 through 10, he's down at depth chart level. So his challenge is to move his way up that 1 through 10. Do I think that he can do that? Definitely. And I think for a true freshman, he's way closer than even I thought he would be.
Lincoln said recently that year 2 feels a lot different than year 1. How have you maybe seen him be different in year 2 versus year 1? If at all.
Not really at all. The one thing I loved about Coach Riley when we first got here, he was like, to the team, to us, he was like, no excuses. That we aren't going to use year 1 as an excuse that, we lost this game, or we didn't quite perform up to par. He's like, that ain't going to happen. And then he's attacking year 2, like, hey, this is year 2. We're not waiting for the future. We're not waiting. Once we get, he's like, hey, what about this team? This team's got a chance to be special. We're going to try to go make this thing special this year. So, to me, his competitive spirit, his nature, and like that, that drive that he has. I haven't noticed any difference. It's not like he's like, oh, hey, we were good in year 1. I mean, he's just the same he was, man. He loves to compete. That's one thing that Coach is such a cordial person and very pleasant to be around. But one thing that probably doesn't let you really see is his true competitive spirit. He's a great competitor.
What went into flipping the tackles?
just probably Jonah's consistency, just how consistent he is on a rep by rep basis of, you know, one thing that happens in the O-line, you don't ever want to lose fast. You know, if you lose slow, your quarterback still has a chance. Obviously, our quarterback's pretty mobile. And then kind of having that guy on the left side with that consistency, you know, the things that happen on the right side, your eyes see it a little more out of your peripheral vision it does from the left. And that's probably the thought behind it.
And then with the guard, so Emmanuel had more experience with right guard last year. And Jared was left tackle last year before the guard the year before that on the left side. Has there been any thought to switch Jared to that left guard spot and have Emmanuel at the right guard spot, or maybe that's
I think from that standpoint, we're going to end up working it all.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're one thing that we're going to do a little more of in this camp is move guys from right to left, left to right, to see where, again, we're trying to figure out what our best combination is, where guys are best suited at, and you know, it's like when I was playing, sometimes where I ended up at wasn't so much about me as it was maybe about the other couple of guys that were competing for those other spots. And if one guy kind of won that spot, it might move one of your other good players to a different spot, you know. And so I think those combinations, there are places to start. We'll see where we finish.
Where can this offensive line in 2023 be stronger than it was last year?
Well, I think we're going to be bigger, you know, especially on the interior. You really kind of had two center-sized guys playing at center and guard. They both had great seasons with Nealon and Dedich. You know, if we have a chance to be beefier and bigger, so I do think we have a chance to move double teams more, and that's you know, something that we feel like we've got to, you know, if as we do get bigger, we need to make sure there's production with that size.
I saw you tweet about the offensive line fellowship. You had a picture of all those guys. I don't know what pool that was, your house, coach's house, whatever. But what does it mean to be a part of the offensive line fellowship in your eyes? What do you got to do to be a part of that, brother?
Well, to be part of the brotherhood, you got to show up every day. One of our big things, just, you know, in life is like, hey, let's show up. You know, let's be there for the people around us that need us. You know. And we kind of translate that over to all areas of life. We've all had deaths in the family or bad things happen, and sometimes just comforting to have family members there. They may not hardly say much to you, but they show up, they're there when they know you're going through a tough time. And so, you know, again, that daily grind that you go through in the lines of scrimmage in football, you know, it really lets you know who's got the ability to be tough enough to show up every day. And so, to me, when we talk about the O-line brotherhood, the O-line fellowship, those kind of things, it's just opportunities for us to get together as a group, break bread, and then, you know, and just to enjoy being around each other, that we show up for each other every day. And every group I've been on, you know, it's like if you want it to be special, like, hey, I want to be a part of special groups. Well, it's like, well, what are you putting into it? You know, and how much are you investing in it? And so that is something that's very, you know, that's something that we talk about and we focus on every single day, is what we're investing in, how we're showing up for each other.
And looking over here at Gino behind you.
Yeah.
Didn't have that many offers in high school.
Yeah.
Just kind of was a guy that obviously kept working hard. What has he done to get to the spot he's currently in?
Yeah, he's just worked extremely hard, and he's always, you know, he's always doing extra. He's always like, hey coach, I have a question on this. Coach, I have a question on that. He's always wanting to improve his knowledge. He's always curious about how he can improve. And then he goes out, you know, on his own, like a lot of guys do in the summertime, and works really hard at doing that. So I think he's got a real shot to be a really strong contributor for us this year and play a lot of ball. And you know, we're going to ask him to expand his role a little too, and get snaps at center too, and be a viable you know, piece if that that did happen in that spot. So he's very intelligent. He's worked really hard, and I'm really proud of him. He's done a great job.